Israeli Defense Minister warns military strikes will intensify if Hamas does not agree to a new deal. Meanwhile, protests are growing inside Israel, with families of the remaining hostages demanding the government prioritize negotiations over military action. Right now, I'm joined by Jonathan Tobin, editor-in-chief of the Jewish News Syndicate. Good afternoon. Where do we even begin with this? We're looking at the full collapse of the ceasefire that in and of itself was difficult to broker. Is there still a way to get back to the negotiations?
Well, the way is for Hamas to stop acting as if it has all the leverage, all the cards, and all the time in the world to keep this going. The fact is, Israel is acting with the support of the Trump administration, which itself was deeply involved in efforts to create a next phase of the ceasefire. But as Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, said, they think they're going to have never run out of time, and that they can just keep going like this, keep holding hostages, and act as if they're going to remain in power in Gaza forever. No one can touch them. Well, they're wrong. Time isn't on their side. Israel's patience, the United States' patience, is not unlimited, and that's where we are with this. If Hamas wants the shooting to stop, they have to start releasing hostages again. They have to stop making crazy demands that makes it seem as if they are the permanent power there in the Middle East. They're not. They're a terrorist group. Their fate is sealed. They're going to have to give up power. They're going to have to disarm if they want any kind of life for the people of Gaza. But they don't care about the people of Gaza. They're just their hostages, the same as the Israelis whom they kidnapped. And the idea, which was reinforced by some of the attitudes of the Biden administration, and certainly much of international opinion, which is hostile to Israel, that there's nothing wrong with being kidnappers, and that the fact that they could just keep making demands and never have to pay a serious price for it. And Israel's reminding them, no, that's not the way it works.
Jonathan, I want to make sure I ask this next question with all the respect it deserves. So help me as I try to make sure I ask this the correct way. You talk about Hamas has no leverage, has no power. Isn't it clear to you, it seems to me, though, that they are playing on the emotions of family members who still have missing family members being held hostage by Hamas?
That's absolutely right. Prime Minister Netanyahu has been and continues to be under enormous pressure from the families of the hostages, who have been supported by some of his political opponents who have sort of ruthlessly exploited the issue. And of course, like any person in this world, we would all trade the whole world for our loved ones. But Netanyahu's responsibility is the security of the nation. If he lets Hamas survive, if he not just that, if he has to release more terrorists with blood on their hands, but if he lets Hamas stay in power in Gaza, stay armed, be able to rearm, that's just a guarantee there will be more atrocities like those of October 7th, more Israelis, more Westerners, quite frankly, because Hamas is, like the other Islamist groups backed by Iran, targets, they're at war with the whole of the West, including the United States, not just Israel. That just will mean more bloodshed in the future. So he's forced to make difficult decisions. The two goals of the war, from Israel's point of view, are the freedom of the hostages and the eradication of Hamas. As I've said and written, those two goals are mutually exclusive in the end, because Hamas will never, is very unlikely to release all of the hostages unless they are completely defeated. That's the only way to do this. If Hamas stays in power, they'll always hold on to some of the hostages, and they'll be looking to take more. So that puts Netanyahu in a difficult position. And it's very hard for leaders in democratic countries. We've seen that in the United States as well, dating back to President Reagan and others. The impetus is always to ransom the hostages, no matter how high the price is. And Israel's already paid a very high price in terms of, released terrorists and, making concessions to Hamas. I think Netanyahu, with the support of the Trump administration, has come to a point where he's saying no more. You've got to release all of the hostages right away. I think Secretary of State Marco Rubio provided a lot of moral clarity about this when he said there's nothing normal about this. We shouldn't normalize kidnappers making demands the way Hamas is doing. They're outlaws, they're terrorists, they're murderers. And Israel is finally going to, in the end, I think, have to go back to war in order to destroy them, in order to save more people from suffering this way. It's a tough decision for Netanyahu, but with the support of the United States, I think in the end, he's going to have to do it.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.